Good morning. Welcome back. Good afternoon, whatever time it is. Welcome back. Today, I want to help those of you who are in marriages where there is friction, where there is resistance, where there's this like rub, and it feels like you are just not on the same page, quite honestly, when it comes to maybe it's finances, maybe it's parenting, but there's just like these recurring issues, recurring conversations that never seem to get resolved. So if you are in a marriage and you are finding yourself like constantly fighting about the same thing and getting nowhere, today's episode, today's conversation is for you. I want to share a very simple but powerful high level framework with you that you can implement in your marriage and show you why you're probably 100% actually asking each other the wrong questions, why what you're fighting about is actually not what you're fighting about, and the conversations you need to be having instead if you actually want to have a breakthrough in your marriage, start to get on the same page, feel like you're on the same team, and actually move forward together instead of pitted against each other. So welcome back, you guys. My name is Christine Jewell. I'm a faith-based high performance spiritual mentor, coach for leaders who are just at this place in their life where they have accumulated a lot of success by the world standards. And now you're going like, I want more. Something is missing. Like what used to do it isn't doing it anymore. And maybe you have a foundation of faith. Maybe you don't. But you know that there are certain areas of your life that are not congruent to God's standard, God's design for you. And if you're honest, you've probably been compromising for a while because you needed to do what you needed to do to get ahead. And now it's time to level up. It's time to stop compromising inside of your marriage, inside of your health, inside of your business, inside of your life. I have a fire. I have a fire for marriage because a couple reasons. Number one, I have been through the fire of testing in marriage. I have adopted dysfunctional patterns from my lineage, my ancestors, my parents, my grandparents. And before I broke the chains of generational patterns, generational addictions, generational dysfunction, it kept perpetuating in my own life. And so I have lived and witnessed the downfall, not only witnessing in my parents' marriage, but also in my first marriage. I'm now in my second marriage, of the lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding about what it takes to have a godly, a thriving marriage, not one that is constricting and religious and, doesn't allow us to fully express ourselves, but one that makes us more of who God designed us to be, one that multiplies everything that God puts into our hands. And so I have such a fire for this because I've experienced the deep pain of loss, of dysfunction in family, of betrayal, of affairs, of brokenness, of loss, losing everything that you built, businesses, houses, just decades of your life because we were rooted in the world system. We perish from a lack of understanding. And as God is so good and is so gracious, He is a God of restoration. I want to just encourage everybody that He is a God of restoration. He's a God of redemption. He makes all things new. As He's done in my own life when I finally said enough with this dysfunction in my family, enough with this brokenness, this heartaches, this constant struggle in the area relationship that is supposed to be the most life-giving area of our lives. When I finally said enough is enough, this ends with me. It shall be so that I will be the one that is the catalyst of change for the generations that go after me. And this is why this show is called Breaking Chains, because it is about breaking free of this system that has kept you enslaved in the grind, in bondage, in pain, recycling the patterns and behaviors of your past. So this is a conversation about moving forward in freedom, moving forward into the original mandate of multiply and prosper together as a couple, as a husband and wife. This is a conversation about how to elevate the way that you look at things in your marriage, the conversations that you're having, and the actions that you are taking. So, like I mentioned earlier, if you are finding yourself in this place where there is constant division or friction, or you are finding yourselves rehashing the same conversations or worse avoiding them altogether because it feels like you're never going to get anywhere. The other person is just not going to understand you. It's useless. It's futile. Be careful that you don't abdicate your place in the marriage. That's so dangerous. When we start hiding, we start pulling back and withdrawing. That's even more dangerous than when we're fighting out front. So you guys just listen, like, it is time to step up, step out, and fight for our marriage, not fight each other. Um, okay, why am I having this conversation? I already told you the background, why I'm on fire about this. Let's jump in to the context. So we were away the last 2 weeks. We took our family for our annual ski trip to Colorado. Y'all, I love skiing. I love the mountains. I love to play in God's creation. And skiing is something that since my children were small, I just made a decision. Like, this is something we're going to do as a family. And so we've been doing this family trip. And so this time, my husband and I, we brought 4 of our 6 kids with us. We brought 2 plus 2, so boyfriend and girlfriend. So, we had 2 weeks in a house with a blended family with new boyfriends and new girlfriends. So now I want you to just tune into the dynamics here for a minute. This is a lot of people who were raised differently, right? Different backgrounds, different ways of being parented, different belief systems. And while Mark and I have been working diligently at creating a unified body in our family, the reality is that my children now are 20, 22, 24, right? His are 10, um, 16 and 18. Sorry, brain fart there. And so we've been together for years, but the foundational years, those first 7 years of their lives, our children grew up in different environments. So they have different blueprints in their nervous system, right? Different belief systems that were ingrained in a long time ago that now we are working out, we are renewing, we are reestablishing. So you get a bunch of people in the house from different backgrounds, different families. You bring in boyfriends and girlfriends who also are raised by different parents who have different ideas. Now you have a melting pot, an opportunity for a lot of opinions, a lot of ideas, a lot of different directions being pulled. So this is like a recipe sometimes for a couple things. It's a recipe and an opportunity, right? Poses a challenge and an opportunity. A challenge where a lot of friction, a lot of misunderstandings can come up, and also an opportunity to elevate the conversations, to elevate and invite people into a new way of operating together. And so naturally, what happened is this, there was stuff that came up with the kids, right? Feeling left out, feeling somebody left me on the mountain, somebody doesn't care, this person's judging me. There was some parenting friction that came up because I saw things differently than Mark saw things about certain things. So I want y'all to know, like, we're real, we're in it too, right? And because I know the way that I raise my kids, I understand their thinking. Like, I had a different level of understanding and compassion and maybe grace than he had, and vice versa. And so here's the thing that I want to say. These types of situations, whether it's parenting, whether it's finances, where it comes up and it's like, hold on a second, we're having the same conversation we've always had. What's going on? That's really what we went through this last 2 weeks. We found ourselves having the same conversation that was creating resistance and friction. And so we had to say, hold on, we need to pump the brakes. We're not having the right conversation. We're not actually disagreeing about this. There's something else here that we've been blind to. Like, let's pay attention to what we're doing here. And so I want to take you through this framework, which was really like, it comes from our 5E leadership framework that we use inside of our business coaching circles, because it's a leadership framework and parenting is leadership. And doing life together is leadership. So the conversation that we needed to come back to was that first E that says, hold on a second, enlist. We need to get bought in. We need to make sure, first of all, that you and I, are we bought in on what we're ultimately creating or doing here with these kids? Meaning, are we clear on what our end game is with our kids at the end of the day? And I'm going to give a very practical example. If if it's instilling certain health habits, right? We want to create people, build people who are healthy, who are thriving, who are in the, top 10%, 5%, even 1% of health in the world, because we believe that your life force is so essential, right? It is the thing that allows you to execute your God-given vision and mission. It is the thing that allows you to experience life. We want our children to be thriving, healthy, to have established healthy patterns. First of all, are we both bought into that? Like, is that actually what we both want? Is that part of our vision? Is that part of what we feel strongly that we're called to build, to cultivate, to create? And so I want to share this because little simple things that we start fighting about that become mountains. Usually we're fighting about the how, or we're fighting in the moment because we don't want to make somebody feel bad, or, we've established poor habits. And we've allowed and tolerated poor behaviors that are not in integrity, not in alignment with what we want to create down the road, but we keep tolerating because that's what we've always done. We've created a culture of tolerating mediocrity, tolerating sickness, tolerating poor eating, tolerating disrespecting our bodies, right? We don't even realize we've done it. So we say, this is the thing, we say we want one thing, but how we're living and what we're tolerating is actually counterproductive, right? It's actually against in opposition to what we actually are trying to create. This is important because we need to understand that your partner is not the enemy. It's that, do we have clarity? Are we actually aligned? And at the end of the day, this is what we're here to build together. So another example would be finances. It's another area where couples really argue and fight. It's like, how much, one's a spender, one's a giver, one's a, hoarder, one's a saver, whatever it is. We have different ideas of what to do with money. And so we will treat different people in our family differently when it comes to money, who you give loans to, who you support, who you give more gifts to. Like, this is not just a thing with young children. This is an issue with adult children. This is also an issue with giving or spending. So we start to fight, or we find ourselves rehashing the same conversation. Like, why are you giving them that? Or why did you spend that? Or how can't you see? And so there's this bull in a china closet again, instead of saying, hold on a second, time out. Are we both enlisted on what we both want, what we're both in agreement to when it comes to the future of what we're called to pass on to our kids? Like, financially, it's not just about us wanting to pass on money. It's about wanting to pass on a psychology around money, an attitude around responsibility with finances, being able to steward, having self-control instead of just spending, so that you can just feel good in the moment. Like, what is it that we are both in agreement on? We want our children to be financially healthy. If that's true, then what does that look like for us? What does that mean? We need to define that. Just like the body, right? If we want our children to be physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy, what does that look like? It means they're lean. It means they're probably working out a couple days a week. Their eyes are clear. They're rested, right? We start to define what it looks like so that we can start to build the protocols today. Well, what creates that, right? Like, it's what we do today, what we stack, the habits that we do today that create that result in the end. So now it's not like I'm fighting against my way versus your way. We're getting together on what is the thing that we're building together in these children, in these teams, in whatever it is. So going back to finances, if we want to create healthy financial children that grow up to be, financially healthy, what does that mean? Does that mean they're surviving paycheck to paycheck? Does that mean that they're just spending on whatever they feel like? There's no self-control, right? There's a spirit of gluttony there. There's a spirit of pride that says, I want, I should get, entitlement. Or do we want to pass on stewardship, responsibility, self-discipline, foresight, being able to look into the future, savings, investing, multiplication, like operating financially from a place of ease, not constant strife? Like, what does that actually mean for us as a family, as a unit. This is the foundational work, you guys, of getting into alignment, of getting into integrity. So I wanted to bring this up because A, it was fresh for us. It's a leadership conversation that we have often inside of our teams when there's misalignment and friction and people are fighting and they're pulling in different directions. You put humans together, you're going to have a melting pot of opinions. You're going to have a melting pot of different visions. And before you move forward and try to just go execute, you need to get aligned. You need to make sure that we're communicating these things, clarifying these things, defining these things. So health is a big place, right? You'll have people that see that we have different beliefs and different standards around health. Well, we need to get on the same page about something that we're in agreement with. So it's not me against you. Finances, faith is another big one. Like, what are the things as we look at our children and our grandchildren? What are the principles of faith? What kind of spiritual posture, position do we want them to hold? This isn't about passing on religion. Like, I want them to go to church and check off all the boxes, maybe, but it's so much more than that. You know, we want to raise children who know who they are in Christ, who stand in their identity, who understand what their rights are as citizens of heaven, that they have beliefs and mental operating systems that are in alignment with what God has to say about them, their future, what's possible for them, their calling, their purpose, not what the world has to say. We're talking about passing on identity, passing on internal belief systems and structure, passing on authority, right? Teaching them not what to pray, but how to pray and why prayer is one of the most powerful tools at their disposal. Like, it's not about ritual, it's about understanding, it's about becoming. So I hope this is not too high level, but I hope, I always like to go 30,000-foot view and let me make it practical and tactical. So when we're fighting about, well, why are we not going to church? Or we should be doing this Bible study. Or we should be doing this. It's like, pump the brakes, stop having the same argument and get clear on ultimately what is the end game. If we're looking at our children 10 years, 20 years, we're looking at our grandchildren. What is the manifestation? What is the fruit we want to be seeing? Do we just care that they're just going to church on a Sunday? Or do we care that they know who they are, that they communicate with the Holy Spirit, that they're walking in authority and spiritual authority? They have a different understanding and peace and love in their life, a different level of joy. That's the fruit, right? So the fruit will tell us what we have created, how we've built, how we've tended the garden. So if that's the fruit I want, I need to make sure that we're planting the right seeds today, that we're having the right conversations. So what are the conversations we're having today that build that level of identity? Are we speaking identity into our children today instead of talking about what our kids are not doing right constantly? I mean, I'm just going to say the Lord has really worked on my heart about this because I'm a high performance coach. I've been one for decades. And so one of my gifts, which also can go in overdrive, is being able to see what can be improved, what can be made better. And so sometimes I can be really hard on myself and I can be really hard on the people around me. And while it's meant and intended from a good place, often can get twisted or distorted where it's like I'm not speaking life, promises of God over myself, over my situation, over my children. And I have to say, Lord, forgive me. Like, I just clean my language up, get my heart right. Let me speak life into these children. Let me speak identity. Let me speak promises into them. So we start to get in alignment. Our behavior starts to adjust because our vision has adjusted. Y'all see what I'm saying? We're not looking at everything that's happening today and reacting to it. We have long-sighted vision of what we're building, what we're creating, what we're being invited to partner with God into, with each other. And we are building from the vision, not from today, reacting to what we feel. I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel guilt. I have mom guilt. I have dad guilt, whatever. It's like, get over it. We need to start to build from a different place, different perspective. So that first conversation is, are we actually bought in? I'm going to break this down into a multi-part series. So what is it? I'm going to give you guys a couple of questions. We're going to keep it short today. But at the end of the day, if we're looking at our children that are grown-up adults, what else are we called to build? Okay, I'm just going to say this one: healthy relationships. I want my children to experience healthy relationships, healthy marriage, to know what love is, to know what it's like to be loved, to receive love, and also to be able to give love without fear of being betrayed, of being hurt, of being let down. You know, a lot of us are passing on generational patterns and fears around love, that love is not safe. Love always ends up in pain. You can't trust anyone. So we actually are not open. We're like emotionally unavailable, shut down. There's walls. And we can't quite understand why. We don't realize like we're passing on the same thing to our children. So today's conversation is really about pay attention to the things that you're arguing about, that you find friction in. These are invitations to healing. These are invitations to bring light to the places that have not been resolved internally. These are invitations to clarity, to establish what you are going to build in the future instead of pass on unconsciously from the past. So pay attention where you're arguing. Stop this thing of like, oh, my spouse is always arguing with me. They're always fighting me. You're not fighting against your spouse. You're fighting against mental programs, against systems, against generational patterns, against confusion, distortion. We need to get together and establish clarity, vision, promise, align ourselves to what God is calling us to partner with Him in. So as you think about some of these areas, I want you to think about what is like the health, the vitality, the energia of what we're called to build together. Are we going to be a people who are always complaining about how tired we are and how sick and tired we are of this? And we're just going to feed sort of like this constant, like entertaining sickness and slothness? Or are we going to be a people who are healthy, who are vital, who are energized about life? If that's what we decide that we are going to build, that we're going to experience, that's who we get to become, then together we get to decide today, what are the habits, what are the protocols, what are the standards we're going to uphold as a family, not to choke us out and make us stifle us, but to bring more life to us, to help us experience that, right? To instill those patterns in the children. If we are focused on what kind of relationships do you want your children to have, think about your future son-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, grandchildren that are going to be dating. Like, what kind of husbands and wives are we raising? Okay. Are we raising up a generation who understand honor, respect, submission to the Lord, Christ center at the marriage instead of the other person being the center of the marriage and the center of the universe? Do we understand what healthy security and healthy attachment looks like inside of relationship versus dysfunctional codependencies and anxious attachments? And I did an entire podcast series on this, by the way, codependencies, anxious attachments, different attachment styles. But if we want to have children that are going to be healthy relationally, then we need to start to establish today, what does safety in relationships look like in our family? What does healthy dialogue sound like? Maybe we need to stop screaming so much, right? Maybe we get to stop interrupting each other and we get to start practicing pausing and listening and giving people a moment to express themselves in a way that's healthy, right? Being okay with the fact that sometimes people are going to be sad. They're going to be disappointed. It doesn't always have to be about us. We can grow and mature emotionally. We can do the emotional healing that's required. So I touched on 3 things. I touched on 4 actually. Physical, mental, and emotional health. That's the energy that we're creating in our children, our future generations. What is the relationships? What kind of relationships do we want them to have? They don't happen by accident. Your kids don't have a great relationship with themselves, a great relationship with God, and a great relationship with their spouse on accident. They are observing your relationship. their body, their nervous system is already encoded with patterns that they have picked up from observing the parental relationships and the relationship that you have with them, the relationship that you have with yourself. So understand this, know this. We've talked about spiritually. What are we passing on? What are we building and cultivating? And we talked about financially as well, because these are the areas. Sexually, we didn't talk about that one as well. That goes into relationships, right? Healthy relationships have certain sexual um, ideas around them, right? Certain sexual patterns where sex is preserved for marriage, it's preserved for your spouse, it's sacred. It's not just something you throw around and trade and just be loose with. It's just the most potent creative power you have. And it also is the most potent doorway to let the enemy come in and just destroy your life. So when we understand the sacredness of sexuality, we understand what healthy relationships look like, we start to have different conversations today about what we tolerate, what we set as the standard, what habits we establish as a family, what conversations we get to have with our children. So I just wanted to go high level with you guys today on this show because I wanted you to be able to pull back and maybe see, this thing that I'm fighting with my spouse with all the time. First of all, this is your action step from today. If there is an area where you are constantly fighting, pull back, make sure you get your heart right and you establish clarity around what's the end game, what's the end result, and then have a conversation to seek to understand, do we ultimately both want the same thing long term? Do we see the same thing? Do we believe God is calling us to build and establish the same thing? If the answer is no, then you guys better get praying about it and ask the Lord to give you a unified mind, to drop into your hearts and minds the things that He has for your health of the future health of your family, the future financial health, the relational health of your family, right? The sexual health, spiritual health of your family. If you guys are not in agreement, ask the Lord, because He will never put two different ideas into your mind. He is the God of one mind, one flesh, one body when it comes to marriage. So that's your first thing. Secondly, once you identify what it is, put it on paper, y'all. If it's not on a page, you're not on the same page. And commit to the process of building that instead of pointing fingers. The last thing is release the how. Understand that you'll have different ways of going about the end result, but that's a process of grace. It's a process of ongoing conversations and making fresh agreements of okay, what is the way that aligns for both of us right now? What is the honorable way for us to bring this into our family right now? What can we do today that's in alignment with that we are both in agreement on? Y'all, it requires a lot of intentional conversations. Raising a healthy, thriving family for generations does not happen by accident. It takes a lot of intentionality. And at the end of the day, raising children is, I think, a prerequisite for raising teams and building teams, because you understand it's the same thing. It's just most adults are actually children walking around in adult skin. To be quite honest, there's a lot of emotional maturing that has to happen. There's a lot of spiritual maturing that has to happen. So many of the principles are the same in leadership, whether we're in business or whether we're in family. I believe that our family is the first territory, the first breeding ground for leadership. So I hope today was helpful. In the coming podcast, I'm going to break down the other 4 areas of conversations I believe that are essential for us to be having as couples, as parents, as we think about intergenerational health for our families. If you guys are listening to this show, wherever you're at, if you're able to comment, I love to see your comments. What was your biggest takeaway? If you haven't done so, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. And as always, I want to encourage those of you who are ready to go deeper into this work. We offer coaching and mentorship inside of our Momentum Academy, where we work with leaders, couples on their marriages, on building legacy. So if you want to explore coaching and mentorship, you can do so using the links below. Until next time, you guys, thank you for being here. Have a beautiful, blessed day. We'll see you next time when we talk about equipping, the training and the equipping of our younger generations.